My name is Paxus and I live at Twin Oaks Community. And there are about 2,000 organizations in the United States that describe themselves as communities. And about half of them are secular and half of them are spiritual. And what communities are is groups of people that are sharing things. And there's of course a spectrum of things that they share. And they share things of two general types. One thing that they share are material objects, and the other are social and cultural components. If it's possible to share it, we're sharing it. So we're sharing bank accounts and buildings and childcare responsibilities and businesses and cars and bikes and gardens and you name it, and we share it. If it's possible to share it, we share it. If you look at what we might do to avert climate change or peak oil, you have a couple of different options. One option is you can ask the people in the consumptive nations to dramatically reduce the amount that they're consuming. That's a pretty hard sell. The other thing that you can do is you can say, we want you to use things much more effectively. And one of the most effective ways to use things is to share things. Currently, almost everybody in the United States, 95% of their material possessions sit idle 95% of the time. All you need to do is significantly change that utilization, and you can dramatically reduce the environmental impact and the amount of energy that goes into the consumption and production of products. This is a huge untapped resource. Now, what communities are we are laboratories or test beds of different kinds of sharing agreements. And I want to tell you a little bit about some of the important sharing experiments that we're doing at Twin Oaks because they give you some insight into the things that we're learning. So one of the things that we might go and take a look at is CommuClothes. And CommuClothes is like a big free clothes lending library. Nothing especially novel about that. We gather clothes from a number of places and we put them up there and we sort them by size and shape, and there are people who have responsibilities there. But the problem with any free lending library is hoarding. Yeah? Where people will go in and they'll say, oh, this is nice, this is nice, this is nice, I'll take all these things and I'll put them in my closet, and then we'll end up in that same situation where most of the stuff is sitting idle most of the time and it's not available to everybody. So what we do to combat hoarding for CommuClothes is we have people whose responsibility it is to go out into the world and find inexpensive or free, nice things, and then come back and bring them into CommuClothes and not just hide them in the rack, but actually prominently display them with the intention of influencing your perception about what happens when you go into CommuClothes. And the way that your perception is influenced is you go in and you say, oh, that's nice, oh, that's nice. There's always nice things here at CommuClothes, and they're different. So I don't have to hide the stuff in my room. I can just do my shopping here. And therefore, I can use the space in my closet for other things that are valuable. Yeah, the community owns a bunch of bikes, and they are distributed throughout the community in different bike racks. Now, the way the bikes are distributed is an anarchist system. You walk into the building, there's a bike in the bike rack, you hop on it, you ride it to where you're going, you go inside, you come out, and the bike is gone because somebody else hopped on it and they rode it away. And then you maybe have to walk or find another bike, but the distances aren't that far, and it's not a huge imposition if your bike has vanished in this particular way. But I, who can ride a community bike, could decide that I'm tired of the community bike system and I want to have my own bike, and it is where I put it, and I can take a bike out of the community fleet, I can put my name on it, and I can just park it at these other locations. And then it would be my bike. Now the difference, like with the CommuClothes, the difference is if it's a community bike, then the bike manager and the bike team is responsible for fixing it. So if it's a flat tire or the chain comes off it or something, you put it up at the bike shop and then somebody else will deal with it. If it's my personal bike, then I am responsible for fixing it now. So these kinds of sharing systems are part of what the message that community has to send to the outside world. Like, if you work at it, if you're willing to work with other people, if you're willing to figure out how to create these non-brittle agreements, you can dramatically reduce the amount that you need to work to generate income, to own all the stuff that you want to have access to. Now, this is another important piece of sharing. Yeah? if you can come up with successful sharing agreements, you don't need to make so much money. If you don't need to make so much money, you don't need to work as much. And if you don't need to work as much, you get more time for the other things that you want to do in your life besides working. Very sexy sell point. Because we do this radical sharing thing here at Twin Oaks, we produce less than 10% of the solid waste per year per person of the average US American. We produce less than 4 pounds a week. The average American produces something over 40 pounds a week. We heat our buildings with wood that's sustainably harvested from here. Correspondingly, we consume 65 or 68% less fossil fuel or heating oil in the community. We're about 75% less electricity per person on the same order, less water consumption per person. The bikes were an anarchist system. The cars are an autocratic system, no pun intended, where one person the night before assigns all the vehicles. People go and write in the vehicle log where they're planning on going, what time they're planning on going, what kind of vehicle they need. Do they need a cargo van? Is a small car okay? A pickup truck? 15-passenger van? Whatever it is, they write what they need. And then the vehicle kind of designer comes in and makes all of these executive decisions and says, you can't drive a car without automatic transmission, you need something that can carry 6 people or more, and does the assigning. And then the next day, when lazy and disorganized people like me show up, I depend on there being slack in the system. I depend on not all of the vehicles being assigned and me being able to come in at the last minute and say, oh, I need something to go into town that I didn't realize yesterday. And about 90–95% of the time, I can get a vehicle. There are a couple of things that we do to reduce our vehicle use. If you look at those 100 US Americans and what they're using their cars for, the number one use is commuting to work. Hey, we work here. Number one use, out the window. The number 2 use is discretionary shopping, where people will go out and they'll go to the store and they'll buy stuff and they'll come home. What we do 6 days a week is we send somebody into town with the explicit instruction of, you're going to shop for everybody in the community who has it together to get you a request by 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah? So this is a way for me to save a bunch of time, yeah? And I can write an extremely elaborate request. I want Breyer's chocolate chip ice cream and I want it in the freezer of my residence and charge it to my allowance. And the chipper will go out and they will find it and they will bring it back and they will put it in my freezer and they will put my name on it and they will not expect me to come and thank them. Because this is one of their jobs. This is how they're getting labor credits. And by having this discretionary shopping centralized, by having us do collective shopping together, we save another huge vehicle use area. Another very nice thing about living in Twin Oaks is that it's a double-sided coin. You know, we don't really get paid. You know, we get an allowance, $85 a month. That doesn't pay for a whole bunch of stuff. The community's obligation is to cover the needs of the people who live here. Housing, medical, food, clothing, entertainment, transportation, education, all of it. To use a really dangerous word, it's a small c communist operation. From each according to their ability, to each according to their need. Yeah. The upside of that is, I don't get any bills. Nothing comes to my mailbox saying, you owe me this money. I don't have to fill out my own taxes. I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. Somebody else is dealing with all of that stuff. And you can live here for very long periods of time and not have to touch money. And that, for some people, especially people who have trouble managing money, is a huge blessing.